All right, guys. Welcome back to the PricePlow podcast. We are live at Supply Side Show today. I've got a lot of friends here with me today. Super excited to introduce everyone. So real quick, we're going to have like a bit of a moderator panel type setup, but I'm going to just intro everyone and then Dave can take it away. So our moderator is going to be David Sandler. I can't go into listing all the things he's done. It would take too long. My name's Ben, owner of PricePlow. If you watch our podcast, you're familiar with all the content. Getting into our guests, Joey Savage, Chief Science Officer for, I want to say Glaxon, but 0 days your real title. But if you've heard of Glaxon, you love their products, we get into that. Dan Lourenço, CEO, owner, Ghost, general innovator of the industry, and Chris Lockwood from Nutrabolt. So we're going to be talking a lot about branded ingredients today. Obviously, Kyowa has some really incredible ingredients that we love talking about, but it's not just going to be about Kyowa today. So feel free to talk about whatever it is that you guys are excited about and where you want to go. All right. Cool. I'm up. I assume you have some opening questions you want to start.
Yeah, first, again, this is an amazing opportunity here. I love panel discussions because you get to hang out with the best in the industry, and this is like the dream team, dude. This is really good. So, having said that, we're all part of, we all work with Cognizin, and that's why we're here. So in full disclosure, and I'm a consultant for Kyowa Hakko, so just in full disclosure. And so what we want to do is talk a little bit about Cognizin, how you guys have used it in your products, but also a little bit more about the industry as a whole and, what's happening in there. So I guess the first real question is why'd you guys choose Cognizin?
Data. When it comes to an ingredient that has reliable amounts of clinical data that has been clinically studied in children, adults, the elderly, at a very wide range of dosages from like 250 to 2 grams, Cognizin's got data in all these different areas. So when it comes to a wide range of applicability from infants to the elderly, or just looking at the cool, unique mechanisms of action, Cognizin checks the boxes across the board.
Yeah,
She's hot.
Yep.
feedback is a beautiful thing. As Joey said, data plays a big role in it, right? Brand plays a big role in it as well. And Cognizin is a great brand name, especially in the world of nootropic and focus ingredients. I think when we set out to develop Ghost Gamer, what really attracted us to Cognizin is that they have clinical data, as you hit on, Joey, specifically in adolescent males, which is the primary kind of consumer of video games, and ultimately what we envisioned for Ghost Gamer, for reaction time and recall. So it just made a lot of sense, and I think that's really what it's all about, right? Finding great ingredients with great brand recognition that has great data behind it to support the ultimate goal of the product.
All right, so I'm the old one here. So I wrote about Citicoline in 1998, back when people read and weren't TikTok entertained. So, I mean, Citicoline has been a wonderful product, at least in the literature. And so that was already in our C4 Smart Energy. I mean, so we're currently doing, we just published a study that has Citicoline, obviously, in this. I don't know if anybody has seen that one in the journal, American College of Nutrition. American Nutrition Association is what it's called now. We did a follow-up study, and then we're just wrapping up a second validation study of that at University of Iowa. And I mean, the data speaks for itself, but it is showing that to your point, is that including that ingredient in those amounts is effective on those markers that people are most interested in. And clinically, in the CNS vital sign test, executive function, I mean, it's pretty phenomenal. And so we definitely see that as a driver.
Yeah, well, Ben, you need to jump in too. Why are you doing this?
I told Kyowa pretty bluntly I would not only talk about Kyowa's ingredients, we want to talk about the industry as a whole. There's been a big push around alpha GPC for a few years. Every kid in the gym knows what alpha GPC is, and it got a little stale. So we started looking at other opportunities, and Cognizin was obviously a really easy one to pick up. The cool thing is that while alpha GPC is really important for focus, it's not stimulatory. Cognizin kind of brings a stimulating factor to it, which is just a little bit of a differentiator. So you don't need to add as much caffeine. Gives you a little bit of a buzz. It feels good. It's kind of at the end of the day.
So where do you guys think the market's heading right now? All of you, everybody's building focus energy type of products. Where do you see us going forward?
fashion? Does anyone want to take it?
Well, I think it's going to head for redundancy with a little bit more of that. There's going to be some trends from about 10, 20 years ago that are going to come back around probably again. So what is old will become new again. And then somebody's going to do something really crazy and blow everyone's hair back. That's probably how it's going to go. May or may not go to jail.
Yeah, I think this microphone's a better one to stick with this one. Yeah, I think the perspective that old and new, this industry is definitely cyclical for real, and I think that generally speaking, the industry kind of goes through these trends where you see a lot of brands bringing obscure ingredients, extracts, things like that to the market, and then you almost see a pullback of that, and people just want the hits. Right, the tried and true ingredients with tons of data, tons of research behind them. They're familiar with it. They know exactly kind of what to expect from it. And I think that, ultimately what we see is a balancing act of those two things. But it really depends, from the long-term perspective and a future-looking perspective of what's new, what's coming out. Is it going to be more research on the tried and true, or is it going to be more kind of in the sizzle? And I think that balancing those two things, search and the sizzle, is kind of ultimately what I think drives a lot of product and innovation from an ingredient perspective. And I think that to reference it, your call out of TikTok and stuff, I think that it's always interesting what consumers are going to latch onto, right, and what's going to really trend. And I think that one of those two things is usually what will drive it forward.
Yeah, I think you guys both. I don't need to repeat this, but the trend side. This is the third time this has come out in the last 25 years. To your point, the recycling of trends. It's the next bell bottom. We don't know when that'll come out, but I don't need to repeat what you guys already said. Probably the fact that it's become a cost threshold thing, pretty obvious, right? It's why caffeine consistently people turn towards what's the most common denominator is what can I get the biggest bang for the buck for cheapest. And now people said, hey, how can I take water and make it sound interesting and cool? I think there's that happens. That's a marketing person problem, right? Yeah. And science guys, I think, knew that stuff was going on.
It's well studied. It's well studied that salt and sugar will hydrate you very well.
Sure.
And prevent diarrhea.
I agree. And amino acids. So we saw, and it's a great point. Is that all those things the essential amino acids are back for a third time in my career, right? It's like, okay, BCAAs get beat up. We go to EAAs. We go back.
Will we see silk amino acids again? I hope.
Silk amino.
I think we're gonna.
Really?
I already started. We heard lectures yesterday. People are back to talking about arginine ketoglutarates again, and they're gonna go. At some point, OKG will come back. We're recycling betaine. Scott Connolly was a huge fan of that. We just called it trimethylglycine back then, right? It's like you find some new thing to call it, and you got there was low carb, there was keto. What's going to be the next version of that? To your point, recycle it.
It's going to be the zero sugar diet.
It'll be the zero sugar diet, something like that. Yeah.
How about desiccated liver? You think that's coming back?
It's going to come back.
Oh my God!
I think it will.
old enough to even know what that is.
I got asked that same question from stage.
I see a couple people out there saying, "Yeah, I remember that. That dried powder
There's some cool
tablets."
stuff in there.
Oh, the tablets. The solar ray desiccated liver.
See,
There's
got
cool
it.
stuff in there.
All right, so guys, why branded ingredients? There's so many ingredients out there. There's so many generic ones. You can pick up this stuff just about anywhere. Why branded ingredients?
It's a case-by-case basis. Most of it's going to come from a reputable supplier. So you can lean on the quality systems of that supplier that not only do they have data, they've got actual analytical methods they will share with you and your third-party testing labs and make sure that what you are putting in your product is what's on the label and it's what's going to get to market. And you're not rolling the dice with someone who's selling a generic that they're probably getting second or third hand from somebody else.
Yeah, I think brands at their best are about trust, and specifically in the branded ingredients, it's trust at every level, right? Trust at the kind of the ghost level, we'll say, right? As far as knowing exactly who we're working with, where it's coming from, what the testing is, what the quality is, what the safety is. Sometimes even as you're scaling, it's really important what the supply is going to be, making sure that they can actually supply you, what the protections are from like use of competition. making sure that the ingredient is going to be repped well, that we're not going to turn on the news tomorrow and find out that it's in something, whatever, right? So all those things could become important at the like kind of brand level. And then at the consumer level, again, having trust and confidence in that ingredient because of the data that's out there, because of the quality and everything else that the brand of that branded ingredient is on a case-by-case basis, good call out. I think that's really, really important and goes into selecting these things.
Thank you, sir. What was the question again, specifically?
Why branded ingredients versus just some generic stuff you can get from anywhere?
I don't think it's so much the branded as much as, from your point, I mean, the quality supplier. I mean, if they're willing to invest in the actual research to do a lot of that legwork with you or partner with you, Kia's been great as far as working with us. And I think that just shows that they've got more skin in the game. And there's a lot of people who just are going to broker things. And to your point, it's going to be some ingredient that would be questionable at best. So,
Are you guys worried about potency or any issues like that? Are you seeing any issues with standard ingredients and their potency? We've seen some drop off. That's just a question.
Well, you're not worried about it if you're doing the testing, the applicable qualification, have good relationships with your, where you're sourcing from, et cetera. Obviously, using a branded ingredient takes some of that guesswork away because you know exactly, where it's coming from and should have kind of a little bit of an open book, ongoing relationship there. And I think the other side, potency and just overall efficacy in general, using a branded ingredient, we live in an information-driven world, more or less, right? I'm a big believer that you formulate for the 1% of the customers that really understand and appreciate the efficacy of the science. You build the brand for the other 99. But for the 1% that's really, interested in what the data says, what the information is, by using a branded ingredient, you kind of know what they're going to see when they put that branded ingredient into Google. Whereas if someone is researching a generic ingredient, you don't know what they're going to find in the dark interwebs and like how deep they're going to go. Is it good? Is it bad? Does it rep you well? Does it rep your concept or your purpose of using it well? So I think, controlling that conversation, controlling the supply chain, controlling all of those things is, again, why and where brand ingredients can win out.
Go second on that. So I agree. I mean, branded ingredients offer that advantage that assuming that they've done the research behind it. There's a lot of brands, you've seen these. They'll come out, they can brand any ingredient. It doesn't mean that they've done anything novel to it, right? So I think it does still take that due diligence. It does from a marketing and branding perspective. You get to capitalize on whatever, if they're doing anything out to the consumer facing, right? I'd make this argument that, so Metaform, maybe you guys remember this brand, had truth in labeling, trademarked. We did this back in late 90s, right? And the thinking there was, let's do full transparency in these. The devil's advocate I'm going to throw out on why we end up using fully, branded ingredients and why we laundry list everything out, is it does take some of that responsibility away from the finished brands to actually invest in proving that their blends of formulas work. So I can see benefit to both sides, and I agree with you 1,000%. I would rather formulate an Indy race car and then average. The reason why I don't think there's a lot of people driving their Ford truck is out into the mountains like I do, but that's how they advertise it, right? They just want to make sure it gets them to the grocery store. So I agree with you on the formulation, but from the product standpoint, I would rather see more brands investing in that finished product research so that maybe those generic ingredients, if we're doing the testing that we're supposed to and the consumers expect, we shouldn't expect them to know every ingredient and every dose. Just be my devil's advocate on that one.
That's on. So to your point, Dan, you brought up we're in an age of information. I'm obviously taking advantage of that pretty heavily. But in general, these branded ingredients are creating online almost personas. Like each company has their own feel. Each ingredient has it's a brand of itself most of the time. Two-part question. Take it whichever way you guys want. Where are branded ingredients going? What would you like to see with branded ingredients? What's something that you're passionate about, maybe improving, or what you want out of branded ingredients?
They already do a lot. They give you standards. They give you clinical data. They give you a lot to begin with. What more could you ask for? Maybe kind of what we're doing right now, a little educational entertainment, maybe, getting the message out there about what these things are in a way that is a nice, digestible way that most people could understand. I myself am terrible about doing that. But, I do like getting the message out there in whatever form that it is. So whether or not it's digestible or just getting more information out there to people is probably the most important thing, is just chipping away at that learning curve so that the general population can understand these ingredients more. As devil's advocate to what you said, if we have a better educated consumer group, then all of this stuff can accelerate at a rate that is going to be faster than if they're just, believing in this one product or this one study or anything. If more people understand what Cognizin is and how it does what it does, we're doing a better service to our entire consumer base.
Yeah, I don't really know if I have a lot to add to that. I mean, I think selfishly on the brand side, limited distribution, first to market advantage, and some of the kind of business tactics are always stuff that we want to put more pressure on our branded ingredient partners to give us. I think transparency and, as Joey pointed out, easy to digest information. So when a customer, no matter where they are on the spectrum of kind of newbie to advanced, is researching what's in these products, they can find clear, concise, accurate, cited information and good solid studies behind easy to read landing page, whatever, behind that ingredient, because it ultimately makes the brands using and investing in those ingredients look good, right? And I think that kind of relationship is really important and something that all these I think a lot of brands can do more, brand ingredients can do more of.
Yeah, I mean, so similar to what we're doing already with Kyowa, I mean, partnering with them on research, I think is super important. So if you got a branded ingredient, to show that not only is their product effective, it helps surround IP around your finished brand. I mean, but similar, the education side.
And just as a bit of a rip on most of the suppliers here, step one, come at me with a clearly defined cellular, if not molecular mechanism, knowing exactly what the fuck your raw material does. You can blurb this out if you want to, okay? Know what your product does. That's step one. In a cell study is great. In a rat or rodent study is also great. Let's take it a step further from there. And if you've got a human study that corroborates this information from start to finish, my God, now we've got a good trademarked ingredient. And Cognizin does it all, okay? Does it all. Most of Kyowa's stuff, you got cell to rodent study to human study, full safety data, it's all there. Most people here do not.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
I'm gonna switch gears just because I'm actually really kind of wanting to know this, and I'm gonna ask you first, Dan. Totally shifting gears here. You've got some really creative flavors for your products, and you've done some collaborations and so forth. Tell everybody, how important is flavoring now in our industry?
Yeah, I mean, I think depending on the product category, flavor is absolutely the number one driver of purchase decision, especially to start thinking about beverages and how hot that world's been. It all comes down to flavor. And as I kind of said earlier, I think from the Ghost perspective, what we've always kind of said internally is formulate for the 1% of consumers that understand it, but you build the marketing, the message, the brand, and again, those important flavors for the 99. Using a licensed flavor, an authentic flavor collaboration, it's not really that different than what we're talking about with a branded ingredient. You're trying to bring people into your product through familiarity. So even if someone doesn't have a relationship yet with Ghost, with Glaxon, whatever Cellucor, whatever the brand is, if they see a Sour Patch Kid, if they see a Starburst, they see a Pez, oh yeah, I remember that from my childhood. I'm excited to experience that again in a functional product, different usage occasion, different place in life, frankly. And I'm going to try that. Even if I take the Ghost off the label, it's Sour Patch Kids in a sugar-free functional beverage. Why wouldn't I want to try that? So it's a great hook. And I guess the hope as a brand owner or anyone involved in the brand is that then they stay for all the non-licensed flavors as well. So you're delivering value beyond that. But it is a great introduction and a great tool, I think, to get out there, especially in the early going.
Nothing to add. That's, brilliant. You guys did a great job too.
Some will argue that these flavors are attracting kids, and no doubt you guys are following the media with all the kids drinking energy drinks, and we know we can go down that road. But would you not agree though that all of your licensed flavors? Wouldn't you agree that all your licensed flavors were back from like my era, like you said, Pez, Starburst, like that wasn't those weren't made.
Look, nostalgia is important, right? And I think that what we have always done is really play the nostalgia card. And I think that, as licensed flavors get bigger and broader, as any of these categories are growing, there's a lot of responsibility on the brand to say, hey, look, we are very careful not to market kids, right? And, Go specifically, we've got, very strict guidelines internally to ensure that we don't do that. And I won't bore you with all the details, but I would encourage all brands out there, regardless of what they're doing, authentic flavor or not, to take that stuff seriously. But for anybody criticizing these like kind of more fun flavors, we'll say, as targeting an inappropriate demographic, I was like, well, let's walk this back a second. The history of, protein powder, we'll say, after unflavored was what? Like, what are the most basic flavors in protein? Chocolate, vanilla? Wait, kids don't like chocolate? Hold on a second. So how far are we going to go? And I think to attack any brand out there that really all you've done, I mean, like this industry is rooted in chocolate fudge, watermelon, this, that. I mean, all you've done at any of the three of our brands is just attach an authentic flavor to that and add some authenticity, add some real nostalgia, and make a pretty cool investment to excite and our fans and consumers that are looking for this stuff. So,
I mean, I think it's a great point that you bring up, because the nostalgia that brings a kid and sees this, and it is going to put a bigger, I don't know how, it's going to put a bigger target on you. I think that's where the finished product research, I mean, you talk about wanting that we demand it of the raw materials. I think for a brand like a Kyowa, and this is where hopefully they see value added in what we're doing, is that we're also giving value back to their brand by we're looking at the finished product, and we're looking at EKGs, we're collecting blood pressure, we're looking at the effects, because we know the lawsuits are going to come. I mean, it's going to be a matter of it. So showing that, putting that partnership label on it, that we're also protecting them as a brand. And so we feel like that's a necessity, because at some point, FDA, FTC are going to sit there and push that. Because of all those raw material, the suppliers that you mentioned that aren't doing the work, it's those other few that are and investing that end up in that same sandbox. And it's happened repeatedly over the last 25, 30 years, right?
Just to expand on the absurdity, the obvious absurdity of this whole thing. How long has Starburst been around? 30, 40 years? How long has Sour Patch Kids been around? At least 30 plus years. How long has Pez been around? Like almost 100 years. I think the only thing that the FTC is really pointing out is how anti-competitive the candy industry is. Because I can't think, aside from sour strips here, this is the only new candy brand to show up. The kids don't give a shit about this, really. This is a candy for adults. And I don't really see kids buying that, but I see a lot of people go to the gym buying it because it's Max's brand. So I really don't see any kind of foundation on this, because these candy brands have been around for decades. And like you were pointing out, it's nostalgia for us, but kids that are growing up nowadays, all they have are the same candies that have been around for like the past 30 plus years.
Well, I'm not saying it's not absurd. Isn't that kind of the definition of what FDA and FTC finds?
FTC needs to start cracking down on the monopolies of these candy companies. Start breaking open the market. The kids need something new.
You got anything? I got nothing.
You got nothing? You always have stuff.
I have a lot. But
You don't want to say something?
going.
Okay, keep going.
I'm good.
Okay, so I want to add one more thing to this level. Have you guys found challenges with ingredients that might not work into some of the flavoring systems and things that you're trying to do? And what have you done about that?
Dropped them.
Next.
Yeah, find a new idea. Yeah, I mean, it's funny. We work with Welch's grape, and that actually started as an ingredient partnership using Concord, grape powder from Welch's. And I thought to myself, man, like we have a pretty great greens product. So does Glaxon. And I was like, Welch's greens kind of, add some grape powder. It didn't work. It just did not work. So yeah, we just dropped the idea, said that didn't work, and move on to the next one.
All right. I'm not as involved in the flavor side for what we do, so not my focus. And so But I think that the other alternative to that would be you work with those flavor houses on finding some scientific solution, right? I mean, there's got to be, at the end of the day, I love asking those questions and then working with those people, those food scientists that are insanely brilliant and get paid great. When I lecture to students on careers, if you like to eat, I mean, a food chemist, I mean, that's like a $400,000 entry level. I would love to have had that as a kid, right? Like if I was into eating. I mean, but work with those. There's some great researchers out there, some contractors. Maybe you can find a solution to that. And that's that breakthrough change to something that is just kind of recycling a trend, right?
I think where I agree with that. I think where I'm going with it, a lot of times when you have a great flavor idea, and I don't know if you found this, but sometimes you want to lean into the base and not fight it. And some flavor kind of concepts and some whether authentic or not, they just work better based on the underlying functional ingredients and kind of what that product is. And we just try to pair those and be really kind of smart about how we kind of go about it.
I was meaning if things didn't work with that flavor system, find that solution, right?
Yeah. Kind of to your point, understanding the product that you're creating. With Glaxon's greens, there's a lot of teas and fruits. Like it's botanical, right? You can hide some stuff in there. You got to play with it, but one of the early things that you told me is like pre-workouts. Don't put botanicals in pre-workouts. You want a watermelon flavored pre-workout, don't put a ton of botanicals in there. You might be able to hide like one or two ingredients in there if you have to for the experience, but understanding what you're creating and basing it off of that is going to be important.
I think we stopped seeing rhodiola in pre-workout because of that.
Don't hurt my feelings like that. I love rhodiola.
I mean, so back in the day when there was an ABB, right, and we did speed stack and we had ephedrine and we had everything in there.
Nobody cared.
Was what it was, man. I mean, and so I do think that there's a level of function that probably, and we saw it. I mean, you can raise a brand pretty high in that core consumer. Question is, can you work with some technician to figure out like the long-term solution? It becomes a short-term play and a long-term play if you're trying to sit there and do that. By the way, we have to start adding some of these other ingredients in. I'm just going to be purely scientific on it. I mean, polyphenols have color because that's the benefit, right? And so if at some point we've got to work on or find a flavor house or somebody who can help create a stable version that still provides those polyphenolic benefits that can go into these and not taste absolutely like shit. And that's really where we struggle, right? Or change the color. If you want to work with spirulina or it doesn't turn black, I mean, there has to be some extra investment in that. And I think the brands play a role in that. Like, partner up. You want a licensing agreement, an exclusive agreement in your space? That's where you become part science, big part marketing, right? And partner up with brands.
I think like one thing just to say for the record is like we're talking with brands that are like at scale. There's a lot of startup brands on TikTok that runs a 200 bottle run and they don't mind putting rhodiola in their pre-workout at 500 milligrams. But just because it exists on the market, technically on some Shopify store, doesn't mean that it's successful. So we're talking about brands
I also think, and this is a whole other podcast, but like culturally we've gotten soft, right? And it's definitely a have your cake and eat it too marketplace and world right now. So people want all of these things, but then they want it to taste great and they want it to be an authentic flavor and they want to have it BOGO 50 all the time at GNC, at their door. So we just live in that world. So I think that, we have to carefully, kind of pick and choose what we can do and try to avoid the if you give a mouse a cookie mindset as much as possible.
I love that book, man. We got kids.
Well, we are starting to see you guys are so young. You probably don't remember when caffeine actually really did taste crappy, and you couldn't make it taste good. And flavor houses have come a very long way in both masking systems, their flavors themselves, and so forth. So, and then what we're also finding though is you use the rhodiola example. If you extract the rhodiola for the rosavins, then you get the benefit. If you just put a rhodiola powder in there that isn't extracted for certain things, you don't get the same benefit, and you get a better taste. So what I think is kind of happening is we're starting to see that the flavor houses are working much harder at figuring out solutions so that they can help us in this space.
I kind of think it's actually more on the ingredient supplier. If you've got something that works really well and you're that confident in it, you should do something to increase use a liposome. Do some sort of like absorption tech that can like encapsulate this, micro encapsulation, put it in a beadlet. Do something so people don't have to taste it. If you want it in any kind of cold water soluble solution, you've got to do your legwork if you want to end up selling it. Otherwise, something great could just end up not getting used.
I love Joey because you think about it, you're like, let's just change the whole ingredient. Let's go with it.
Yeah, if you got a problem, you need to fix it.
But on the same thought process, like for instance, I love to use PKTP, and everyone complains about the flavoring of it. Why don't these companies then partner up with a flavor house? Hey, we have this ingredient. We've done everything we can. Can you work with us, since you're the flavor experts, to create some sort of masking agent, to create some sort of SOP so this can taste better?
I've seen that work both in good and in bad ways. I've seen plenty of flavor mask different chemicals or ingredients come out to market. They say they're flavor mask. You try them and you're like, no, this is not.
Then they come out with the 40% version, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they do.
Sorry.
It's easy to drink your own Kool-Aid, right? And everything starts tasting better that you make, and so that does happen with some of these ingredient groups. You're absolutely right. There is a play. I mean, one of the things I do obviously is I work with some of these groups trying to help improve the flavors that do exist and what's happening in those ingredients, but it is still a really long way away. And so to your point, maybe there should be more effort getting out there. If you want to see your ingredient in a product and it tastes like crap, then you should be doing something to help it taste better as well, not just the brand and expect the brand to buy it.
Quite frankly, we should have like some sort of group of us where we know the sus ingredients that we're talking about right here, and we can connect them with the right flavor houses or like absorption tech people and be like, all right, you have a problem. This guy has a solution. If you guys would work together, we might use your ingredient.
There you go.
We need our own booth next year.
Our own group chat. All right, so we're rounding around like probably the last quarter of this. To switch into the shameless plugging for Kyowa, we got to give them a couple clips here. We brought up Cognizin at the first, but I know you're more of an Amuse person. Give us a clip. Why do you use the ingredient? What do you enjoy about it? What does it do for you?
I like Amuse because it has a clearly defined and very unique mechanism through activating the plasmoid dendritic cells that I don't really think any other postbiotic or any other immune booster does, which is kind of neat. It gives you more of a holistic sense of immune activation, because I've also got, mushroom blends and stuff in the greens product. So there's beta-glucans, there's all kinds of like fun things, but it creates more of like, I don't know, a more well-rounded immune response if you're looking for something like that. Other things, I like the Cetria Performance Blend, having more of a prolonged effect on nitric oxide. I love the concept of Velox and the discovery that, citrulline could be seen as like an arginase inhibitor in a way like I think Kyowa made arginine cool again after it was, bashed on for so many years. And who doesn't like Cognizin? Like, I think if anyone takes Cognizin, you're kind of inclined to like it after that point, just because of the downstream effects it has on dopamine and everything else.
Yeah, tough to really even add to that. Yeah, I mean, like outside of Cognizin, obviously a big fan of cetric glutathione, both in the performance blend and even by itself. It's probably one of the ingredients I recommend most to people. Like, hey, even if you're not a core supplement user, as far as something that you should be taking every day, for me, it's Cetria, because of all the amazing effects and antioxidant properties it has. So.
I think that a good example of how they took a old product and made a new story with it. I mean, what they did with the arginine and citrulline, I think is great. I mean, so as far as trying to reinvent and do a new fashion, I think they did a great job with it. Cognizin, we're pretty focused there, all pun intended. I mean, on what we're doing with that. We looked at some, it was a dad joke, wasn't it? I mean, that's what I get, man. 52, I do the best I can. I mean, so. We're looking at different combinations. I mean, so what the thresholds are between caffeine and Cognizin, at what point do we get a peak response? And so I think those are really important to look at. And so Kyowa's been helping us with that as well, which is cool.
Well, I'm going to give my shameless plug. I asked about the flavoring for another reason. Is there is pretty much no product that Kyowa does that doesn't flavor very easily. Soluble, drops into solution, works in just about every application, and that there is, again, one of those things behind the branding that you guys have spoke about. come to the table with something that's that I can use. Don't make me work for it. And so I think they've done a really good job at that. So there is a shameless plug.
Cool.
You ask another question.
This message has been brought to you by Kyowa.
Do you have any 30% off coupons?
I can connect you. I know the right people.
No, I mean that's pretty much all I got. I mean, to bring three people together from very, very different skill sets, it's been really interesting to kind of mold it together. So thank you guys. I really appreciate it. If you guys have anything you want to add, feel free.
Take questions from the audience.
Yeah, we got a
Yeah.
massive audience. Who wants to throw questions?
You have to.
A couple big faces too. You wanna run it over to someone?
Well, if we have someone that would.
I'm sure Mike probably has a question.
Would anyone like to ask us a question for the
Ryan
panel?
might have a question. We got a celebrity.
Anyone but Ryan Buckner.
Did you say who? Ryan
Yeah,
Buckner?
you, brother.
Come on, Ryan. You're the press here. This is a presser.
I don't have any.
Talking to the microphone.
I know.
I struggle with that too.
What do we have to do to get Cognizant and Fit Butters? That's what I want to know.
There you go.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's actually a good question. So, when it comes to functional foods, we're seeing that category growing. How can we get better branded ingredients into functional foods, protein bars, unique protein-based foods?
I don't know, Ryan. How can we get functional ingredients into food products? I would like the question answered.
If you really want an answer, we did a ton of research at General Mills on this. Consumers just don't care in food. They don't. And it takes a lot of money and education to inform somebody buying a protein bar or nut butter to do so. And you guys make products every single day for performance enhancing, whether it be pre-workouts or whatever. And it's difficult even there in which they're seeking those things. So the cost, the time, it's hard to justify it.
Look, as good as Rory's Cognizant Cookie Madness sounds, yeah, I'm a fan. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Unfortunately, I just don't know that most customers are looking for it just yet. Like functional food, obviously very big term. I think generally we're talking about protein, products there. Although, look, functional beverage, even outside of energy drinks, that's a fast-growing segment. I think you're seeing a lot more going on there, stimulant or non-stimulant, and I think that's definitely an area that you could see some things branch out, but outside of energy, outside of cognition, nootropic, et cetera. And I think we'll see probably more of that as people just want more convenient formats to take these things than the old, scoop and shaker.
I think the convenience is a big factor. Mike and I over the last year have seen a lot of engagement in kids that don't want to scoop powder. They just want to drink an RTD. And I have fallen into it. When Dan sent me 2 cases of Ghost Whey, I stopped shaking protein powder for 2 weeks. And then I had to go back because there's no more Ghost protein right now. But I think we have to put the functional back in the functional food. I think right now a lot of people want to shoehorn Cognizin into a brownie for some reason. And who cares? But if the food is functional, if the food is something that you would consume for a feeling and that actual feeling is obvious, people don't care. No offense, people don't care about Cognizin. They don't like a normal consumer doesn't see that and think I want to take that. But if it's energy drinks are the perfect thing because people actually love that feeling. So maybe it's a calming snack at the end of the day. Maybe it's something that actually improves your day. You want me to give you the mic back for that one?
You made a great point earlier about the BOGOs, right? I mean, that's what they're looking for. I think if you guys to use this I do think you need to come up with something that brings in that flavor element at an inexpensive, cheap cost, right? I mean, that's functional food is. I mean, it's hard to get something stable on shelves for 2 years and in that category, right? Where I don't know, is that what GNC is demanding still? I mean, that's what we did when we were there, and they all turned into bricks after the first shipment showed up. And so I think that's the problem is that there's just not that deliverability for the consumer on that experience beyond, hey, we tasted it tasted great right out of the shelf. And so until somebody can figure that out, that's a food technology issue.
I also think when it comes to the actual function beyond protein and energy, or I guess you could include nootropics in that energy segment. What kind of function would you want in certain foods? Obviously we have a whole plethora of just about everything here that we could put function into some sort of food. So is it a brownie that increases your immunity or a bag of potato chips that gives you a solid bowel movement, or how many customers are really looking for that? Like it begs the question. Like, I don't want to have to think anymore about like eating food. I want it to taste good. That's where the bar is right now. And anything above that, there's just that's not why we are driven to food. And the function in the food or beverage in that sense would become the afterthought, unless you are in where you're looking for the function first. I am looking for protein. I'm sick of drinking shakes. I'll have a bar or chips or what have you. I don't want to take any more fat burners or pre-workout, but I'll grab this beverage. It's right here. So you have to look at like those higher performing categories and find out where you're going to differentiate in that category into a food product.
Hey, that's a good point. So you remember choline cocktail and neuro drive, right? I mean, so I'm curious what you guys are seeing as far as this neurotropic space. It never does as well as the caffeine-driven stimulant space.
People don't know the difference.
People say they want it, and
Well, here's my point. We're talking about people like actually noticing the difference and actually caring about the difference between like choline cocktail and energy drink. And I was honestly going to bring up Dan's drink is amazing because it tastes incredible. Everyone wants to drink it, enjoy it. It's a status symbol having a Ghost energy in your hand. Very few people care about the neurofactor that's in it. And I love neurofactor. It's nothing against futureceuticals, but Mike coined this phrase. It's kind of like Trojan horsing in helpful ingredients. How many cans do you sell a minute? Is it right now? Was it 750 cans a minute? How many of those people do you think care about the actual active ingredients inside of it? 7. Okay. But those people are still getting those benefits. All 750 are still feeling that benefit.
We've been sneaking fruits and veggies into stuff since I was a kid, right?
Well, the good news is the energy drink market, I think, topped at $55 billion worldwide last year. It's been increasing at double-digit compound annual growth rate, and it's expected to hit over 100 million within the next decade.
Billion.
Yeah, 100 billion. Sorry. Yeah, that sounded like that was.
It's just money. It's just ridiculous amounts of money.
It is, and you know what the amazing thing is in today's society, how everybody's so conscious about what kind of waste we're making. We are making more waste than ever. Single serve is by far the biggest thing anybody wants, and people bitch about plastic because it floats atop the ocean, but aluminum sinks.
And then we don't have to look at it.
And then we all have to look at it. And so, so the good news is a lot of these single serves are they're not going anywhere. They're except up, right? So lots of other opportunity for growth out there for everybody in it. So, and I just want to also give one more shameless plug, and that is everybody coming to the What's Up with Subs party tonight? Woo! Woo! Tomorrow. See, I'm really screwed up. You need to take it.
Tomorrow
I
night?
blew that.
House of Blues?
Well, yeah, the House of Blues, Thursday, October 26th, 5 p.m.
Come play Rubik's Cube with Kyowa, right?
He was doing a Rubik's Cube contest.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining us. I really appreciate your time. And big thanks to Kyowa for hosting us. It's been awesome. Thank you guys.
I want to say, man.